Hello, parents. I hope you guys are doing great this fine day. My name is Nick, your humble youth director. And like we shared, we wanted to start sharing more resources and opportunities for you as parents, as caregivers of children, to help grow and foster an environment of faith within your homes. And so one of the ways we want to do that is through these monthly videos. And so the first one that we're going to be kind of diving into, and I hope that you enjoy this, is about how to create a rhythm within your day in order to continue to point your kids and your entire family to Jesus. One of the things that we as a family ministry team and us as a whole staff at the church, and ideally the entire church, is we believe that every parent really wants to be a better parent. And that every parent wants to find more ways, more effective ways in order to help their kids encounter Jesus and to grow in faith and to continue on in that faith well past graduation. And one of the things that I hear all the time is not every parent knows how to do that. And they feel a lot of pressure to do more things like family prayer or family Bible study or serve together. And oftentimes within the context of our lives, that seems impossible because trust me, I know things get busy. I just have a 2-year-old, and it's becoming harder and harder to find ways to fit in important stuff like this into our daily lives, especially with a kid who just wants to run back and forth and launch himself off the couch. And so, what we're going to talk about today is what does it mean to create a rhythm? What does it mean to look at the routines in our lives that are consistent, that are reliable, that are regular, and all of them are different, and to be a little bit more intentional with those little moments, right? Because one of the biggest things that we want people to understand is that it's the little choices that we make each day that make up our experiences for the rest of our lives, right? The way in which we spend our days on a moment-to-moment basis has a cumulative effect. Is that how you say it? Cumulative effect that echoes into the years. And so it's important for us to not look at the end goal and become overwhelmed, but to look at what could we just do today or just this week in order to move in that direction, to point our kids and our entire families to Jesus. And so this idea of being intentional, taking small steps forward with the way that we speak to our kids, with the way that we speak to each other, with our spouses, with anybody else who is in our home, and the actions that we do together, taking small steps of intentionality in the direction of faith development is something that we all could set a goal for ourselves in small ways and take that step forward, because a little bit of intentionality is worth a lot. It's more than just doing nothing, right? And so what are some ways that we could be intentional as parents? And so we want to help identify for you some beats within the day, some parts of everybody's routine that we think most people share. Now, these aren't going to be true for everyone, but they will be true for a lot of you. And so if they don't quite line up with what your family experiences, it's up to you to kind of contextualize and adapt them for what you guys are doing in your own household. So some of the big ones that we want to share with you that we think are important that you could be intentional with, specifically with your words, are your morning time or your breakfast routine, your driving time in the car, because let's be honest, you are spending a lot of time with kids in the car, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, your meal times or your kind of hang times within your home, and then bedtime. And this is going to be different for different age groups, of course. So let's start with the morning time or your breakfast time. Now, I don't think most people have a morning breakfast getting ready for the day experience that looks like the ideal version of a bunch of families sitting around a table with a big cup of orange juice and waffles in front of them. That kind of morning for me is reserved for holidays or if we've got a nice vacation in front of us. I think for a lot of people, morning can be a little chaotic. It's a bunch of people running around trying to just get what they need before they could get on with their day. One of the best ways that we could be thinking about our mornings is not to try to craft this idyllic situation, right? But rather it could be an opportunity for us to wear the hat of a coach. It's to look at our day ahead and to instill purpose for everybody that is in our home, right? It's to use encouraging words. It's to be like a rallying cry. It's to be a hoorah. So whatever your morning looks like, whether it's crazy or it's peaceful and serene, which I think is nobody, is to find a phrase for your family that could be motivating and can instill purpose for everybody throughout the day. This is something that you could all say together. This could be like your rallying cry for the day, and it's about building purpose, right? It could be things like, today we are going to go into the world and show the love of Christ. Maybe you say that as you walk out the door. It could serve as kind of a little prayer. Maybe it's something like, today I will live as a child of God. Or Today, let's find ways to put others before ourselves. It's to think of something that Christ would want us to do, his commands or his way of life, and to put it into a phrase that can motivate us and remind a kid when they're in school or when they're at sports or when your spouse is at work to live in the ways that Jesus inspired us and told us and commands us to live. And so this kind of rallying cry, this phrase, can be a fun thing that you as an entire family do together, and it can be done throughout a chaotic morning or even at a peaceful breakfast table. So that's one tip I had for you to be intentional around your morning routine. A next beat that a lot of people share in their day is their drive time. I hear from a lot of parents that they feel like all they do is taxi kids back and forth from one activity to another. And it can feel like a chore. And trust me, I get it. I've got a short commute. You guys know that. I just walk across the parking lot. But I do drive Malcolm to and fro from daycare, and it's about 20 minutes each way. And that takes up a lot of time, right? And this is even before he's in other activities or he's in sports. And I know it's just going to get longer, right? So there was a study done about how long parents spend in the car with their kids. And over the course of their childhood, before they graduate, it comes to about 3,147 hours. That's a lot of time that you are in a car with your kids, bringing them from one place to another, right? And so rather than this driving time being a chore, it could be an opportunity to really connect with your kids on a meaningful level. And one way to think about the drive time is that is just like morning time was an opportunity to be a coach, drive time is an opportunity for you to be a friend. It's to help them interpret life, the experiences that they had throughout the day. And it's a chance for you to get information about their life so that you could better understand how to parent them specifically at that moment in that week. So one tip that I want to offer for you is for you to identify 5 car talk questions that you ask every time that you're all in the car together. And these should be questions that help them and help you to interpret the experiences that they've had. Right? It could be as simple as what was your high and low of the day, what was a place that you saw God, what was a thing that you would do differently, what is something you saw from the day that we could pray for together, what is something interesting that happened with your friends. Whatever it is, it's for you to hear their experiences and then gives you an opportunity to process those with them through the lens of Scripture and who Jesus is. But to make sure that your drive time is a place for discussion, it might mean saying, hey, in our car we talk, so we're going to put the phones away just for this drive. Or in our car we're going to have these discussions. And even if friends are a part of that, it's a great opportunity for them to see what it looks like for how Christians live, right? And so use your car time as a chance to hear about their day and to process it with them. Now, this isn't necessarily a time to scold or to correct or to call them out on something. Like I said, this is a chance for you to put that friend hat on. And so it's just asking about what their experiences were and processing that with them. It's validating their feelings about those situations and giving them open-ended questions to try and interpret those things for themselves. So I would really encourage you to use that time as kind of an active listener, an active to be curious and to be thoughtful and to be interested in what their experiences are and to guide them in how they could process those things as a follower of Jesus. The next thing that we're going to talk about is mealtime. Everybody's got to eat, and I realize that not everybody has the space in their day to set a very specific time to eat together as a family. But what I want to encourage everybody to do is to find some time within the course of a week, and if you can't do a week, the course of a month, whatever you can, to say, this is a day that we eat together as a family. Because so many things can be talked about and discussed and experienced together as a family around the dinner table. And so just like morning you put on your coach hat to instill purpose, just like in the car you put on your friend hat to help them interpret life, at mealtime this is your chance to put on your teacher hat in order to establish values. And this can be a formal discussion. So the way that mealtime is a little distinct from the drive time in which you're interpreting your day and giving space for them to articulate their experiences, the mealtime is a formal place where you can, as a teacher, speak into the things that you maybe discussed within your drive times. And so it's a place where you could offer advice, you could offer correction, you could offer encouragement. You, as a family, maybe during your meal times, it's during the opening time, right? After you pray or once you're digging in, it's where you talk about maybe a theme for the month that you've established, where all of you have decided, you know what, this month that we as a family are going to work on being more generous. And so during mealtime, you could ask, what are some ways in which each of us have been more generous, right? And it could be expected that everybody would share as much as that they're able to, right? And so whatever you do during your mealtime, this is your chance as a parent to speak into the things that you have been hearing or that you have been seeing, and to offer them encouragement about how they can continue to grow in faith. And so, being that it's a formal conversation, right, this is where you can cover some business things, right? You can invite questions about life or faith or what you talked about church. There's another great idea. Maybe your dinner times are just, hey, what are you learning at church and tell me about it, right? And to pull those things apart and discuss them. You don't have to have a full itinerary in front of you, right? That would make a very weird, boring, awkward kind of dinner. You don't want to make it feel like a business meeting, right? But it could be a place where you talk about those things. And so I would encourage you to think about what could meal times look like? What is a day that we could schedule, a time that we could schedule where we are going to eat as a family and we are going to talk about the important stuff? And the last kind of beat in the day that I think everybody has is your bedtime or your end of the day thing, right? For the littlest ones, bedtime routine is very set. I know how important it is that you kind of go through all of your beats, right? But it gets a little different as your kids get older. And so, what hat do we wear at our bedtime routine? Well, we put on our counselor hat, right? This is the chance to build intimacy, like to build that nearness and that warmth of relationship. And it's to have those intimate conversations. It's to be a place where you could ask kind of probing questions about how are you doing, how are you feeling, how is that relationship going with your friends, or what's something that you're struggling with right now, and to just listen, right? To just hear what they're going through and to remind them of the value that they have no matter what you hear. This is a chance to be very encouraging, to be very warm, right? And so I think for our littlest ones, right, this is kind of cuddling before bed. This is a really cool chance, at least for me right now. One of the ways in which we make this intentional is the books that we read with Malcolm. We will read from a kid's Bible or some other Christian kids' books where they just talk about the stories of Jesus, right? And then we kind of review what he went through throughout that day. He loves to say, kind of go through a list of everything that he did. That bedtime is a great place for you to, and the book time and the story time is a great place to begin sharing those stories of who God is with your littlest ones, right? I think for your elementary schoolers on up, right, bedtime could be a very difficult time to be intentional, and it could be hard to force this quality time. Trying to force it and say this is what we're going to do during this time and trying to set this really important spiritual space, it doesn't always work, because the fact is that kids have been at school for about 8 hours that day, and many of them have been at the school even longer if they have extracurriculars or band or sports. And so when they get home around that bedtime, often it's not a question of what you can make them do, but it's rather of what they want and what they choose to do, and asking how could you be a part of that with them, right? And so I think for our older kids around the bedtime routine, it's adjusting our plans a little bit to be available when we are needed. To be present when they need to have a conversation, and to clear out space where we could be fully attentive and there, right? And so especially for our oldest kids, it's constantly expressing, I'm available if you would like to talk with me tonight. I'm here if you would like to process anything. I'm praying for you right now. Let me know how I could be praying for you right now, right? But it's also asking what would they want to do. Maybe it's watching a movie. Maybe it's just zoning out on their phone for a little bit. Maybe it's cutting into some of their homework, or maybe it's even seeing a friend, right? But if you have the opportunity, is to ask how you could join them in that. I know a lot of our boys, they love to play video games. They love to decompress and play some video games at the end of the night. And I encourage the parents a lot of time, rather than trying to say like, turn that thing off, let's be together, let's watch this show. Maybe try to sit with them and ask them about their game. They may think this is crazy annoying, right? But it actually is a really cool thing that you can do, and they probably will appreciate it even if they don't articulate it, right? And it's to make yourself available and present with what they want to be doing and going through those things with them. And it gives you the chance to be that counselor that we talked about during the evening time, where you could ask some of those probing questions and ask how you could be praying for them, and to be an encouraging person. I think at bedtime especially, and in the hang time, this is one of the biggest opportunities for you to articulate and share how much you value them and where their worth comes from, that it comes from Jesus, and that your love for them as a parent or as a caregiver is not going to go away regardless of what choices that they make. When we do that, when we affirm that value, especially during this evening hours as they're going to sleep, we are articulating a grace-based gospel, that the basis of their value is on who Jesus made them to be and what he did for them, not on the things that they've done or the things that they've said or the mistakes that they've made, but strictly because he's a child of God. And so looking for different ways in which you could express that, as they're hanging out, as they're decompressing, as they're going to bed, is an amazing way to be intentional with your evening time. So with this video, we're also going to include a few different discussion guides with those different beats in the day that are specifically, they are narrowed in on the age group that you parent, right? And so whether you have an elementary schooler or a little baby or one of your oldest, we hope to have a little discussion guide for each of those ages of different ways that you could be intentional with your words during those different parts of the day. And whether those line up with your specific day or not, I would encourage you to take a look at those and think, how could you build those into your morning routine, right? How could you build those into your drive time routine? How could you be creative to invite God to be a part of your day, and to process Him alongside your kids together and to experience Him as you walk and try to live a little bit more like Jesus? So take a look at those attachments. Hopefully those guys are helpful for you. Another resource that I think would be really helpful, as we talk about these different beats in the day, is the Parent Cue app. You could just go to the App Store and look for Parent Cue, and they actually give you something throughout the day that you could do in that specific beat of the day to be intentional about faith development. And they'll include a scripture or a video you could watch together, or something that you could think about, or a question to ask. If you don't want to be thinking about being creative or trying to find different ways to do these things, download that app. It will give you some awesome ways that you could be intentional every single day. And you just got to pop it open and say, okay, and just try it. You may actually really like it. I do it with Malcolm, and I think it's been a really cool thing for me to be thinking about how I could be pointing him to Jesus, especially with the busyness that's going on every single day. Also, just want to remind everybody to check out our resource cart. There's one in Wonderland. We've got a bunch of books in storage. One of the books that we're highlighting right now is called Parenting Beyond Your Capacity, where it goes into depth about this creating a rhythm idea, as well as several other principles for intentional parenting in your home. So I hope this was helpful for some of you. Please reach out to us if you want to learn more about this. Check out those guides. Check out the Parent Cue app. And I look forward to seeing a lot of you around church. And I hope you have a great day. Bye.